So we'll start in a minute.
We're live now.
Oh, wonderful. Alrighty. Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the Get Me Hired team, welcome to How to Get a Job in the US webinar for international students. My name is Tanzim Chaudhary, and I'm live from Texas, and I will be facilitating this event. Our presenters for this webinar are Siam Hossein, who a lot of you already know. He's the founder of Higher Study Abroad and also of GetMeHired.co. He has been helping international students for almost a decade, and his contribution is truly legendary. Our other lead presenter is Istiak Rahman from California, who is also a founder of GetMeHire.co. He is also a former international student, and currently he is building venture-funded companies in the Silicon Valley. His inner circle is some of the brightest and innovative minds, not only in the country, but in the world. We are very fortunate to have both of them. I will be the third presenter. I graduated a few years ago from University of Houston, where I worked with international students office along with minority organizations to add value to students' college experience. My alma mater recently named an award in my name for my mentorship effort, and I'm a strategist for GetMeHired.co. We'll go over several topics, including how to get a job in the US, the immigration, why we are doing this, how to plan your career, and how to find success in your career. Please ask your questions in the chat box as we're going along, and we'll try our best to answer them. And if it is a private question in nature, please email us in info@getmehired.co. We are very excited to organize and conduct this webinar with people in attendance from all over the country. America is indeed the land of the opportunity, but the truth is, as we all know, given the current political climate and some unfortunate immigration policies, it has been getting harder for international students to land a job. That's where we come in, and that's what this webinar is all about. So food for thought, there's a question before we get started. So the question is, and write down what you think the correct answer is, and we'll reveal the answer towards the end. So the question is, what are the two most important values any employer looks for? So that's going to be the question. And without further ado, Siam Bhaiya will kick off this seminar or webinar with its first topic. We hope you find this webinar helpful and resourceful. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanzim. Hi, everyone. I can see that a lot of people are already have been waiting in the chat. So I have my cell phone open in beside my laptop. So I'll just keep looking at the questions as we go. Wow, there are at least like 15 questions before we started the webinar. But all right, so we'll start right away. I hope that you guys had a good weekend. Thanks for joining us at this 8 p.m. Sunday. We can see the dedication you guys have for and we have been in your shoes, so we totally understand. So I'll without further ado, I'll just start sharing my screen. Let me see. Let me open my slide. We'll first talk about basically why we're doing it. So let me share my screen. Yeah, give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen. It should be visible right now. Can you guys see my screen? If you can just say in the chat if you are seeing my screen, then I can just start going. I think you can see, right? Okay, awesome. All right, I know some people here. Hi, Erika. Thanks. I can see that a lot of people from a lot of different nationalities are joining as well. Thanks for joining. We'll try to create as much value for you guys as possible. All right, so why are we doing this webinar? So first of all, we have been in your shoes. I have been personally an international student. Everyone here who are working with me have been international students before. I came here from Bangladesh basically 9 years back to do my master's, and then I went through the H1 job visa, then got my green card. So I made all the mistakes possible to come here. I wish I didn't make that many mistakes, but there wasn't any guidance. So yeah, the first thing is that the primary reason is that for us to do it is that so that you don't have to do the same mistakes we did. So that's the primary reason. And as I said, that there is for for international students in general, like when they come to this new country, US, it seems like obviously a land of opportunity. But after your degrees, graduate degrees or undergrad, there is just not any singular platform or any guidance which says that, oh, like this is how I'll land a job, or this is how, like there is just, it's just more like a it's very cloudy space. And people usually, it's very easy in that phase, which is very desperate, because students have to always worry about their status, to get confused or sidetracked or take wrong directions or wrong decisions. So yeah, so there is a lot of guidance or lack of information. I'll give some small examples. Like since I'm assuming everyone who is watching it is an international student, or probably an immigrant. One of them is that if you know of the student visa, which is F1, you have OPT, which is the extension of F1 visa where you can work. So suppose someone's OPT is ending in February and they need to apply for their H1, and normally for almost in all cases the H1 visas, our application starts on April. So what do you do in that case? Like your OPT or OPT extension is ending on February. Your H1 visa will be applied in April. How do you stay in US in that time? Or there is a rule of OPT that you have to get a job within 90 days, within the first 90 days. How do you get a job within first 90 days? What do you do if you don't get a job? So there are concerns or questions like that. So yeah, so these are the reasons we are doing the web. These are the reasons which has always there, even before 5 years back, 10 years back, like 5 years back when I was graduating. And the current immigration policies definitely didn't make it easy. I got my green card 2 years back, but I have so many friends who are still going through H1, F1, and all these green card processes. And I'll just share, I keep hearing stories from them, but I'll just share some of the articles I was reading recently. Let me share my screens. The one of them is that H1B, which is the job visa, the petitions, the denials are skyrocketing in the first quarter in this year, basically. And the problem with this, I mean, I'm sure that all of you guys already know that the current policy of the government is it's an America First policy, which means that it's not very favorable for the immigrants or the international students. It's not very favorable for the international students, and this is affecting all throughout the steps. Like H1 is getting a lot of RFEs. There's another news I'll read through. Arizona congressman seeks to kill OPT work permit for foreign students. OPT work permit delay. So students who are applying for OPT, usually it didn't take more than like 1-2 months before. Now it's taking like 3 to 5 months. So everything is getting slower. OPT is getting slower. H1s are getting more RFEs. Green cards are taking longer. So the whole process is getting through a lot of backlog and denials. So I'm sure you guys already know most of the news, and this is another reason. I have a lot of friends, followers who reach out to me regularly saying that, hey, like, what should I do in this situation? And this is another reason, coming back to the why we are doing this. We wanted to address all these issues in this webinar. Going back to the presentation, who are we? Basically, if someone knows me, they probably know about my project, which is Higher Study Abroad, which I have been doing for more than 8 years now, where we help international students to come to US. So basically, we primarily serve a lot of people from Bangladesh, but we have other people from other subcontinental, like people from other subcontinental countries too. And our group is it's one of the largest groups, like academic groups, which is like 176,000 members plus members. And we have been doing it for last 8 years. We have done a lot of seminars. We have done a lot of contribution. for those who wanted to come to US. So I founded that organization with some of my other friends or cohorts, and what I realized in the last couple of years is that coming to US is kind of like phase one of your journey. It's just I always say that like coming to US is like the trailer of the whole movie. Like the US is actually the whole movie, and it's I don't know, I don't want to say what is it, a horror movie, is it a funny movie. It depends all in the outcome and how you see things, but definitely coming to US is just step one, and the step two or the bigger steps is going through the process here. We're graduating from as a student, going through the rigorous immigration processes, multiple steps of that. So I realized that there is a huge sure, like we help people to come here, but it is our duty to be able to guide them through the next phase, which is basically getting them jobs, guiding them from the through the immigration processes, and I would say like at least make them settle, which is I would say like get them green card, have a stable job, and have a stable status, which I always say this is something every international student should remember, that you have to solve your money problem, which is through job, and you have to solve your status problem, which is I would say like it's green card is your ultimate solution of your status problem. If you have not none of this solves, your life will be like really miserable. So which where I have been. So yeah, so these we are basically doing it because we have that accreditation for doing it for a couple of years. Um, um, all right. So in this webinar, obviously, please feel free to keep asking questions. We will, by the end of this event, try to answer all of your questions. So yeah, like there are questions like how or when do I convince my employer about H-1B? Like when to approach the employer? How do I convince the employer? This will be some of the questions which are being answered. When is it or when you are joining a company, how do you analyze that if that company is going to sponsor your green card or H-1B? Because not all companies are eligible to apply. Then again, like when or how to convince your employer about green card. So these are some of the topics we are going to cover. Just to give you an outline, I'm sure most of the uh, viewers or most of you guys are probably aware of the process, but I'll just go through a quick run through. Basically, when you come inside US, you have your F1 visa, so you're a student, and then after being a student, you basically apply for an OPT, which is optional practical training, which means that you are just working under. It's kind of like an extension of F1 visa, which gives you access to working here. So you can work for OPT for 12 months, and then if you are qualified by the STEM fields. I'm sure you guys know what STEM means: science, technology, engineering, and math. So if you are within the STEM field, you basically extend the OPT extension, which is for 24 months more or 2 years more. And within that time, you have to convince one employer to apply for your job visa, which is the H1, and then hopefully your employer, the same employer, will apply for your green card, and that's basically the green card. So that's like, I'm sure that you probably know these things more or less. There are multiple pathways for green card. There is EB1, EB2. EB2 has a special category, which is national interest waiver, which is NIW. Then EB3 is another category. There, feel free to ask if you already know all these things more or less. Feel free to ask me questions. I have been through all the processes. I have been helping students for too long, so I can answer those questions as well. Yeah, so I guess like, is there any question from the audience? Maybe some of the other speakers can help me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think, thank you, Siam. That was very good intro. There's a lot of question that poured in, and I want to address the first question, which I thought was pretty interesting. The first question is, can anyone directly apply for green card through a company instead of H-1B? I guess the question is about if they can apply for a green card on their OPT or OPT extension period.
Absolutely. Yeah, they can apply for a green card from the company for sure, but the company has to be willing to apply for it. So the problem with the whole immigration system is that none of the companies are usually friendly towards the. It is just a. I say that this is a modern day slavery, and yeah, sure. If any employer is willing to apply for your green card, yes, it is possible. I have seen people getting green cards, but most of the times the employers want to in a way like milk you out. I don't know which other way to say, like they will basically just suck all the juice out of you before they do anything. So they will take all your OPT, all your OPT extension, all your H1B years, and then apply for green card when they don't have any other options, you know. So yeah, but yeah, it's possible. Legally it's possible if you can convince an employer.
I also wanted to jump in really quickly and mention that we really appreciate all the questions that are coming in. Any questions that we're not able to answer right now, we will get to it eventually. And also, if there is any questions that is a little private in nature, we do encourage anyone to email us at info@getmehire.co. So please do email us if you have any specific questions.
Thank you. And thank you for that answer, Siam. We have a lot of questions. I want to address the next question, which is, I think, a little bit from Abdullah, a little bit confusion in this question that I can see. And the question is, what is the minimum requirement, bracket, publication or experience, to apply for a green card directly after PhD? So the question is, what is the minimum requirement to apply for a green card directly after PhD? Example, publication, experience.
Yeah, so this is a great question, and the answer is not a singular line answer. So I'll give a very high level answer for this. This is more like a legal advice. So first of all, you can definitely apply for EB2 NIW, which is a national interest waiver. I think there are some other questions regarding that by some other people as well. So NIW means national interest waiver, and this is a very, like, there is no fixed path, but I would say if you have a couple of high impact, so there is no quantifiable minimum requirements, because the NIWs are applied, like it's done by the lawyer, so it's how the lawyer puts your case. Obviously you have to have, I am not sure about the exact number, but you have to have a decent amount of publications which are decently high impact. Again, it's there, I can say the numbers, but there's no guarantee that you'll get the NIW. So I have seen people who have even 3 or 4 publications and they got NIW. So I don't know if that will be the case for you. But usually the normal case is that if you have a US patent, that's definitely a very solid case for NIW. If you have some publications in some high impact journal, that's a good indication of NIW. But it's also very important that you catch a good lawyer who can present your case well, which I think is one of the major deal breakers. There are also multiple hacks on this, how people get NIW. People help each other getting more publications published, but I'm not going too much into that. But yeah, there's no minimum requirement, but you have to prove that you are. I hope the answer was decently clear. There are no fixed numbers here, so I cannot like really point any numbers here.
Thank you, Siam. We have another interesting question here, and I hope you can answer this question for Moinuddin Chisti. He's saying, is there any restriction in applying for a green card while in day 1 CPT? Does anyone need to be either in OPT or H1B status to apply for a green card?
No, they can just, for applying for green card, they can just graduate and they can do it instantly. Like they don't have to be in any other status.
Great, thank you for that answer. Our next question comes from Ahmed Yasir. Actually, no, the next question is from Asif. He's asking, if an F1 student finishes master's and intends to go for a job instead of a PhD, but does not get a job right after graduation, what is the best option to do?
So
the question is, I think the question is, if an F1 student finishes master's and instead of going to PhD, goes into OPT and does not get a job offer right after graduation, what is the best option to do?
Okay, so that is a good question actually. And after this question, I'll go back to the slides, and then we'll come back to the questions again. Um, so yeah, the first thing is that yes, someone can finish their masters. They're in their OPT. Within the first 90 days, they have to get into some kind of job. And the right legal way to do is that if they cannot get into a paid job, they can get into a volunteer job. Ishtiaq will cover a little bit about that in his section. But yes, like if someone is not getting a paid job within first 30 days, they first 90 days, they have to go into a volunteer job, at least like an volunteer internship. um, and then within OPT is a 1 year thing, so I think someone should get a job within 1 year. If that's not happening, yeah, they can go to PhD. They can also try going to CPT, which is basically they can apply for another master's into another school. And then there are a lot of schools in US who basically generate CPTs within like 1 week of paying their tuition fees, and they can perpetually stay in that phase, basically keep doing masters and getting CPTs. I hope that that answers the question.
Yeah, thank you, Siam. I think those were the questions, and we can field some questions at the end again.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sounds good. I'll go back to my slides. And there was a question. There are some of the questions which are like, will this presentation be available later on? Yes, our video will be available. Our presentation will probably be not. But yes, our video will be available. So for sure, you can access the video anytime. And we'll try to answer all your questions by the end of this. But if we are not able to, we'll definitely make sure that we are answering you later on when you email us. So yeah, I'll go back to the presentation. So I'll talk about basically in this slide about career planning. So the step one, we have discussed about why we are here. Now it's very important that to reduce the time loss, basically is that you have a little bit of plan of how it's going to look. The next 5 years is going to look for you. So uh, it's difficult to plan more than that, but obviously have a generic, at least high level idea on how you are navigating through from now graduating till you get the green card, not only the next step, like next couple of steps. And this is a basic slide I made that, yeah, like you are here who is graduating, and then you want to eventually go into the industry and create impact in the world. So that's kind of where you want to be. And there are multiple steps here. Like you are graduating or graduated, you have to develop some of your skills. We're assuming many of you guys are from STEM fields. If you're not, then having definitely some kind of programming skill or coding skill will eventually give you a better edge in US right now. We'll talk a little bit more about that in our next slides. But yeah, like develop your skills and then build your online portfolio, like building your LinkedIn, building your online presence, like writing Medium articles, and show your work through some live projects, because employers do not care much about your education because you have only learned theory, but they care more about to see what you have actually done or what have you actually built. um, Even for research work, what have you actually published? So they want to see result oriented things. And then you go through the job search process, and then after you get a job, you have to do multiple things. That you have to retain the job so that you can retain your status. You have to look for growth in your job. You have to negotiate your salary. You have to negotiate your visa status. You have to negotiate green card. So there are multiple steps you have to go through from graduating to being stable in your career in US. So I'll give a that. So that's step one in your career planning. That I hope that after this webinar you have a mindset that you have to start just scratching out your career for next couple of years, or at least start thinking about this thing. um, and if I zoom in more on that career, that suppose this is a very like a single case situation. Like suppose suppose you are graduating next May, right? So you're graduating next May from your undergrad or master's or PhD. Next May is what, like 9 months to 1 year. Let's say like 9 months later. You have to, if you want to be hired in May or June next May, which is the ideal case, that you, by the time you graduate, you should have multiple job offers in your hand. Especially in current situation, you definitely should have that. And um, to in order to do that, how do you achieve that goal? I would say that in order to achieve that goal in next May, you should plan from at least from 9 months back, which is basically now. So this is a great time to start. So summer 2019, which is now almost summer is ending, is that you basically start planning for your building your portfolio. So basically start writing, making your online portfolio, having a strong LinkedIn profile, getting references. We'll go more details about this, but in general, target mentally, install that in your mind that the fall 2019, this year should be the year where you're building your entire portfolio, and making it strong and practicing. And then from January next year, from January, at least the job hunt will take at least 3 to 4 months, because you'll probably be studying as well. So make sure that you start applying from January, like literally from January or mid January, you start application. Only if you do that, you'll be able to um, basically get a job, like have offers before you graduate, which is, as I said, like the ideal case. And obviously you have to prepare for applying your OPT before you graduate and all this stuff. One more thing I wanted to add, that the ideal case scenario would be, now there is no option you can change it, but if you are doing internships already this summer, like that would have helped you so much. If you're graduating next May, if you had an internship this summer, that would have helped you so much. But if you have not done it, it's okay, we can always plan ahead. But just to say, the ideal case was that you have been interning this summer, and then that's basically the loop. So just like whenever you are graduating, subtract 9 months, and then calculate that what will be your moves. All right. So is there any questions for this? Yeah. Okay.
I think there's this one interesting question that I want to ask here. What about PhD students? As you know, we've been speaking to a lot of PhD students. Are they encouraged? Should they look for internships? Is it required for PhD students to look for internship?
Absolutely. So this is a great question. I hope that I can nail it down with one answer. So masters versus PhD, a big question, and the easy answer for that is that if someone wants to go to academia, that's the first question. If someone wants to go to academia, PhDs, yeah, like you graduate with your PhD, you do postdoc, you do go to academia as a faculty member. That's one route, right? That's a singular route. You don't really necessarily have to do any internships for that, but even then, internships help. So that's one route. But the second route is that you can probably do PhD, but you want to work in an industry. So think what you want to do after your PhD. Forget about what you're doing right now. So if you want to go to industry after your PhD or master's or undergrad, whatever, absolutely always yes, the internship helps a lot. Like it changes the outcome double or triple times. It makes it better. So yes, sometimes that your advisor might not be too helpful or friendly to go for internships, but you can always convince your advisors. If you have an internship in your hand, I see a lot of students having these questions without having any internships in their hand, and then thinking that, oh, like what will I do if I had internship? It's like having a fancy problem without even having any options in their hand. So yeah, I would say yes, absolutely always helps to have internships. And first get an internships in your hand, and then try to convince your advisor. I'm sure that your advisor can give you a break if you get an internships in like some top big company, because it's always good for advisors for their students to have connections in big companies as well. So it's you can always convince it later. But yeah, uh, that's my answer. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah, I think, thank you, Siam. I think those are the questions for this section so far.
Okay, all right. For those whose answers are not coming for now, we'll make sure we answer it by the end of webinar. So at this point, I would like to actually pass this microphone to my colleague Ishtiaq, who will talk about switching careers and some more stuff. So Ishtiaq, if you can take the lead.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Siam. Well, thank you everybody for being with us today. We really appreciate it. As you know, my name is Ishtiaq, and I'm one of the founders behind Get Me Hired. And at Get Me Hired, we talk to a lot of international students about jobs. And one of the questions we always come across is, should I make a switch? And there's a lot of reasons you might have that question come up. For example, if you are from a non-STEM field, you obviously know that, or you may not know that STEM talents or STEM graduates get extra STEM extension, whereas non-STEM field, they only get 1 year of OPT. And STEM graduates get extra OPT extension. So there is a lot of reasons you might want to look at why you should think about a career switch or a field switch. And we're going to explore some of those things today. Now, before I get into it, just a quick thing to think about whether or not you should switch from STEM to non-STEM. You could be in a STEM field, and you could even have that question in your mind that whether or not I should switch. Now, how can you think about that? So for example, we speak to a lot of electrical engineering graduates who are frustrated by the lack of jobs in electrical engineering after they graduate. Part of the reason, which was interesting to find out, was that there is a lot of security issues. So for example, in Bangladesh, you will see that there is a lot of big cellular companies, and jobs for electrical engineering are a lot more. But in America, there are some security issues where they only accept American citizens for a lot of different kind of jobs, and then your job field might be squeezed up. So these are the things you want to think about. And luckily, USCIS is flexible for people within the STEM field. When they look for another STEM field job, they're usually very flexible because they kind of bunch all the STEM jobs together. So we're here to tell you that it is very possible. Now let's look at an article from CNN Money to see what are the popular STEM jobs out there, right? So here's an article from April this month, and it talks about what are the top STEM careers that you can consider if you're already in STEM field or you're looking to get into the STEM field. Now, here's number 5. So let's go to number 1. So number 1 is saying computer system administrator, which is expected to grow by 6% next year. This is the top job, CNN, according to CNN Money. And they run surveys all around the globe to find these numbers out. Second one is computer networks architect. Again, a computer science related job. And you're starting to see a pattern here, right? Expected a job growth at 6%. Number 3, web developer. Again, you're starting to see a pattern here that computer related jobs are in high demand, and they're expected to grow by 15%. If you notice, web developer jobs expected to be raised by 15%, which is substantial than the other two. And that's number 3. Number 4, database administrator. Again, number 4 is actually STEM job is actually computer science related. And then finally, you get to a political scientist, and then so on, like psychologist, and then you get to a mechanical engineering job. So you can easily see that there are discrepancies in terms of which graduates get what kind of jobs, and it's heavily tilted towards computer-related jobs. So that's something you definitely want to consider. Here's some of the other questions that you might want to consider before you make that switch or decide if you want to switch or not. Will I get a job in the field that will satisfy my H-1B or OPT requirement? So if you're studying political science or some non-STEM field or whatever your topic is, you need to seriously have a conversation with yourself by doing proper research and being honest to yourself. Will I actually get a job in my field? Because you understand that H-1B will only be accepted if you get a job in your field. I will explain that one more time. For example, let's say you studied economics and you graduated from university as a master's of economics. Even if you know computer programming, you cannot really get H-1B approved if you actually get a job in computer programming. So that is a big question, right? Even if you get that highly coveted computer science job, because you graduated in economics, you might not be eligible for that job because USCIS might not approve it. Same goes for OPT extension. Another question you want to consider is, how likely am I to get a job in my field of study? As I mentioned earlier, there are a lot more jobs in some fields and a lot less job in certain other fields, right? Aerospace engineering, for example. You love aerospace engineering, but there's probably 5 companies that are hiring. So what do you do in that case? You have this conversation within yourself. The good point about it is that from UCIS's perspective, if you are in STEM field, they usually do not worry about switching between STEM field. They'll usually approve it. What I mean by that is that, let's say you studied mechanical engineering and then you get a job in computer science or programming, they will usually approve it because you can somehow show some relevance. But if you're in a non-STEM field and you get a job in a STEM field, that's usually really hard. So you need to think about it and strategize. Should I switch my major? Should I do something else? All these things are very important, but usually from STEM to STEM is usually okay. And then another question is, what are the skills or steps do I need to take to switch to a desirable path? So for example, if you're in mechanical engineering and you did some job search and you realize that, okay, I am going to graduate in mechanical engineering in 6 months, but all the jobs are in computer programming. I need to figure out how can I get a job in computer programming. So you need to figure out and nail down, these are the skills that I need to get before I get into that abundance of job, which is computer programming. Now, let's come to skill building. And this is one of the most important things that people ignore, especially students, and it's understandably so, because students are busy, they're dealing with coursework, and they're dealing with a lot of other things that their peers, American peers, do not have to worry about. But this is something you have to look at right now. You have to go to websites about jobs and look at what are the skills people are looking for. For example, if you're looking for a business analyst jobs, you need to know SQL. It's just cut and dry. No one's going to take you as a business analyst if you want to get a job unless you know SQL. So in the question that you want to consider when you want to build your skills, what are the skills can I learn which will make me irresistible to a potential employer? And then what skills am I lacking to get a job in my field? So there are softwares and frameworks that you need to learn based on what your field is. You need to do that research work, and you need to plan early so you can get those skills. And then another question that you want to ask yourself, do I have enough time to build the skills that I need to get hired? It's a very candid question that you have to ask yourself and figure out if you actually have that time. And if you don't have time, you might have to plan a different route. Now, we did a quick research, and this shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. What are the key technical skills for graduates? And this is specifically not just for STEM talents or STEM graduates, for all the graduates. And easily, by a long shot, by a huge margin, programming skill is one of the most desirable skills on a graduate. And this should be abundantly clear to everybody. You're studying social science, computer science, mechanical engineering, you name it. Every single graduate programming skill is one of the best skills you can have. Second one comes as project management. As you can understand, project management is a very good skill to have because you can manage a variety of different kind of projects. But programming by far is the most relevant and attractive skill that you can build. You can find tons of articles online if you researched on what skill should I build. The most versatile skill is to learn programming. Here's an article from Forbes. You guys can check it out. Why coding is cooler and more important than ever. And there are several reasons why programming is important, but I want to break it down in three different ways. So first of all is hyper acceptability. And the reason why programming is so attractive to employers is essentially almost every company in the world has some kind of IT department that involves programming. So even if you're not working directly as a computer software developer or directly programming, they kind of want someone who actually knows how to read code or knows how a software development team works or web development team works. And it has huge benefits. Number two is superpower in research. And a lot of you are PhD and master students, and you know that if you want to run good research, there is no alternative to programming. You're fiddling with data, you're building a product, or you're testing something out. In research, programming is one of the sought after skills, and it could be R, it could be Python, and you know that today's day of machine learning, the programming skills are even more attractive. And programming has become easier. Back in the day, we used to program with if this, then that logic. Computers would get specific instructions on how to run or what to do. But now, in the day of computer science and in machine learning, people program with data. So instead of instructions, people program with examples, which is data sets. And then moving on from there is the job abundance. It is absolutely incredible, the difference of jobs available in computer science and programming as opposed to everything else. If you look at jobs, computer science or programming jobs are way more abundant. There's a huge lack of talent. I'm in San Francisco right now, and I can tell you this up front. There's a huge demand for programming jobs as opposed to any other job you can think about. And always remember, novice programmer is better than a non-programmer. So if you're worried about, hey, is it too late for me to learn how to program? Am I too late? Am I not going to have time to become a great programmer? That's okay, because knowing some programming is better than not knowing any programming. Now, any questions so far about this?
No, I think I'm good.
Great. So we're moving on, and we're going to go over how to build your portfolio. And I think that is one of the most important topics that we should talk about. What do you mean by portfolio? You might ask. What I mean by portfolio is when employers look at your resume, they're actually also looking for your online footmark. They want to see how your GitHub looks like, how your have you published enough article, what your website looks like, how your LinkedIn looks like, what kind of articles you've written. And I want to give you a quick example of how that should look like. So here's something. So people who are programming and people who are looking for coding related jobs, you want your GitHub to look like this. You want it dotted with all these contributions throughout the year, which shows the potential employer that, hey, this guy is an active programmer and he is actively producing code on a regular basis. And I have been an employer and I'm still hiring people, and this is the first thing I do. I go into their GitHub and I try to see if they are a solid programmer by looking at all the repositories they've contributed to. And this is the number one thing you can do. I'm not going to mention about LinkedIn because it's just obvious that your LinkedIn should be completely stacked up. But here's one thing that people forget, and this is something you can easily add value to. Ask for recommendations. People you've worked with before, people you have who have mentored you before. Ask them on LinkedIn or on Facebook. Ask them, hey, I'm going to send you a request. Could you, I worked with you. Could you send me a recommendation? It looks great on your profile. We want to go up to them and say, hey, can you give me a recommendation? And then obviously skills and endorsements. That is also something you can ask from people you've worked with or you've worked under. And that is something you can improve right now. LinkedIn is a great source of new jobs. And understand that if you have a stacked LinkedIn and you have the right recommendation and right skills, you will get inbound requests. An inbound request when a recruiter is reaching out to you is very different from reaching out to recruiters. The power dynamics is different. They're after you, and always know that recruiters are always after great talent. So that's another thing that I wanted to mention. I wanted to give you guys, and there's another thing about personal websites, and this is something above and beyond, but I recommend you do it. So I'm going to give you an example of one of my mentees whose website, his name is Asif, and he has a website, and it is sort of a hub for all of your accomplishments. As you can see, he has a little bit of about me space, and this is a free website. And today's day, it doesn't take more than 10 to 15 minutes to get a drag and drop website going. You have no excuse to say that, hey, I cannot build a website, because now it's all drag and drop. It's like using Facebook. And you can see that he has carefully categorized all of his work, research, project, publication. He has some animation work as well. And he's carefully put them up here for people to look at. And not only it looks great on his profile, it actually gives people an idea about what his interests are, and the fact that this person is tech savvy and is there to showcase all of their work. And you definitely need something like that. So having that said, I want to go into something that's really important and a lot of people forget about, which is internships. Now, Siam talked about it earlier. You need at least one internship before you graduate. And I don't want people who are graduating next year to freak out and have not done internship to freak out, but usually that's what you want to have. You want to have at least one internship before you graduate. And the best time to get internship is the summer. And if summer is the best time to get internship, you can understand that you have to prepare for it in January. So you can understand that internship, and you have CPT, you can obviously get CPT for that. And you essentially need that kind of background in your profile to be able to take advantage of your OPT period, right? And next question is, where should I look for internships? And that's a very interesting question, because there are two types of internships, right? So I say category 1, category 2. Category 1 are the internships, the big ones, right? For example, Google, Microsoft, Apple. These are the companies that have dedicated internship program, and they pay really well. They actually pay $8,000 to $9,000 a month. They're great. Getting into those internships are surprisingly easy compared to getting a full-time job there. And you can go to their website, find out what are the internships they're offering, and go from there. And then there's the category B, which should be your option B. And these are startups. Now, having a high-paid internship is better, but if you have no internship, you should think of working for a startup. I'll give you an example. Internships at startups are surprisingly easier to get. They don't pay as much, they pay little amount, but you need that experience. So a few years ago, when I first came to the Silicon Valley area, I had a little startup called Archie AI, and I was in Silicon Valley trying to hire people. And quickly I realized that, wow, I'm competing against the Googles and Microsofts of the world, and I could not get any talent. So what I realized that I could hire actually international students as interns, and they were so competitive that I couldn't even hire actual computer science graduates. I was hiring people who had a little bit of coding experience from mechanical or other engineering degrees. But as soon as they got a little bit of experience and a little working experience pushing code to a real production product, they were all successfully hired in big companies. So you can see that how hungry the world is, or the workspace is for these coding related jobs. And if you have a little bit of experience, it goes a long way. Now, another question about volunteering. There are a few questions. Am I allowed to volunteer? Am I allowed to do unpaid volunteer internships? Or what kind of volunteer experience should I get? So I'll go with the number one question. Am I allowed to volunteer? So first of all, you are only allowed to, you're always allowed to volunteer, but you're not allowed to volunteer while you are an F1 student for a for-profit company. You're only allowed to volunteer for a non-profit company if you are on an F1 visa. What that means is that, when you're a student, the Department of Labor does not want you to be volunteering for a for-profit company. You can only work for nonprofit. But if you have actually graduated and you're on an OPT, that's when it's interesting, because you can actually volunteer, unpaid volunteer. You can volunteer for actual for-profit companies. A lot of you are really stressed out about the fact that when you get into OPT and you don't have a job set up, what are you going to do? You have 90 days. I think that's when it becomes really valuable, because you could volunteer for a startup that cannot pay you but has real work experience, that can give you real work experience. You can take advantage of that. And when you're in OPT status, you can actually do unpaid internships for those for-profit companies. And the last question is, what kind of volunteer experience should I try to get? Obviously, you should try to get relevant volunteer experience, but some volunteer experience is better than no volunteer experience. So that's what I would say. Any questions so far?
Yeah, actually, I have a couple of questions. I'll direct some towards you, Ishtiaq, and I'll answer some myself. There are actually a couple. So I'll start with the ones which are relevant. So Erica Garzon is asking that if I'm in the business and finances field, should I learn programming too? That's the first one.
Great question. Erica, absolutely. I want to say this categorically, yes, yes, yes. It depends on what programming language you should learn, but I would say 110%. You should definitely learn programming, because nowadays, every single company requires some kind of programming skills. So a lot of business graduates, what they don't realize is that if you're working in any kind of analytics, SQL or SQL is one of the basic things they will ask you to know. And it is, if you know SQL, you will become much more attractive to employers. If you know a little bit of JavaScript, you can build websites. If you know how AWS works, you know how your backend works. So I would say yes. In short, you definitely should invest some time in programming if you wanna elevate your profile.
Okay, and I think another question is probably similar, but it's what level of, it's by Tanvir Nawaz. What level of programming is novice for a non-computer science student?
That is a great question. I don't think novice depends on subject to subject. I think novice is a novice, but if you are aware of how programming works, a lot of people actually do not know how programming works at all. I would say novice is when you do not have any code in production. What do I mean by not having any code in production? If you have a live website that you've built from scratch, I wouldn't say you're a novice. If you know about programming, you have done some projects that is in GitHub, you have no code, nothing that, not a live product that is in production, that is live right now, that you can show off, you're a novice. Once you make that switch from knowing about programming and having a live product, or you've been part of a live product that is out there, you make that switch from novice to intermediate. Up until then, if you have not done anything in programming and nothing is live, you're novice. And I think that is true for all fields.
Okay, thank you, Ishtiaq. I'll go through two more questions. There are actually a bunch of questions coming. Thanks for everyone for waiting, because we are picking the questions and answering them as we go, but we'll make sure that we're answering all of them by this webinar. If it is not, then please definitely make sure that you email us, we'll definitely reply you back. I can see a lot of immigration related questions. One more thing I wanted to add is that our webinar was supposed to be an hour, but definitely we are here to create value, so we can probably exceed that. But I'm sure that you'll be like heavy, hopefully. By the end of you'll have your questions answered, and we'll go through a lot of job searching tips in next slide. So definitely stay on. So I'll go through two more questions. One is by Maria Fernanda Paz. I hope that I pronounced it name rightly. I have 1 year for OPT and waiting for approval. When is the moment to tell the company I need a sponsor? I'm afraid if they don't hire, they might not hire me if I tell them in the beginning. I can probably answer this. Maria, you don't. That's actually a good question. A lot of if you have applied for your OPT and you're waiting for your approval, you can say that you are allowed. There is a question usually people ask that, are you allowed to work in the US? Yes, you are allowed to work in the US. That should be the answer. Before the interview, before you get the job offer, in general, unless you are like fully illegal, your answer should always be that, yes, I'm allowed to work in the US. So don't worry about this right now. Get the job first, create some value there. Uh, and by creating value, I mean that make sure that you are working hard or extra hard to make your employer dependent on you. And then after 3 months, you can raise that concern. But make sure that the company you are working at is eligible to apply for your aid. That is some consideration to do. But I hope that question was answered. I'll take one more question and then we will go to the next session. So, Imtiaz Hassan, can you please tell for internship, do I need to change my F1 visa status? Yes, I'll answer this. You need to go to a CPT if you're doing an internship. You cannot work outside of your campus when you have F1 status. That's it. If you want to go outside of your campus, which is not a campus job, you definitely have to be in CPT if you are still studying, and if you have graduated, then it's OPT. So yes, you have to apply for CPT. I'll take one more which is relevant. So is research-based internship in a national lab still a good idea before applying for jobs in industries? Ishtiaq, do you want to take this?
Yeah, sure. I think that is a great question. I think research related, if you're working for a national lab, that looks really good, actually. I think it's really hard to get government jobs. And you might be, if you do great internship, you might be eligible for certain other categories of immigration that actually really help. So I would say, yes, definitely, that's something that you should consider. And I think working for the government opens up opportunities in private companies a lot. So yes, that's a great idea.
Okay, awesome. So we will come back to the questions again in future. Let me go to my slides where I'll be talking about the job search process. We are not rushing it. We want to, let me see, where is my video? Okay, there it is. All right, let me share my screen. So I have some questions from students about job search, LinkedIn. So hopefully we can talk more about that in these slides. All right, so, okay. Let me just scan quickly. All right, so let's talk about the job search process. All right, so this is kind of like a high-level view of the job search process. So once you are, as I say, like in my last slide, I was talking about career planning, that you are graduating. You should start at least 9 months to 1 year back before you want. From the day you want to start working, you want to start planning at least 9 months before. So just keep that in your mind. Now, the job search process has multiple steps, right? So I'll go through a couple of like the step by step. So the first one is basically developing your personal profile. Means still now you are doing undergrad or master's or PhD, or you're doing some kind of MBA. You are already building your profile, but having them written down in in a format. So that's like the step one, which you are already doing. So that's step one. And then having a career goal or objective. So uh, again, like you probably already have them, but having them in a written format always change. Like the moment you put them down in a paper, that changes the whole thing. So I was talking about career planning. So basically writing down what is your objective, like when you are starting to look for job, what is your objective, just writing down 2 or 3 sentences. I will give some examples. So that's step two of the job search process. And then once you have that, you basically create the resume, and then you create an online presence through LinkedIn and some other platforms. And then once you have created that, you basically start marketing yourself or reaching out to people, and basically have a plan on how you will reach out to people. So plan that and action. So these are, again, I'm just going on a very high level. I'll go through details on some of them today because obviously you cannot finish everything too deep today, but we'll go through the major points. And then you basically network. You do networkings, and then after networking with people, you have some action plans on how you'll follow up with the network. You will apply to the interviews, you will apply to the jobs, and then you will get prepare for the interview. And then after the interview, basically follow up. And then uh, part of the whole process is that you have to make sure that you are mentally and physically healthy. So this is kind of like the whole cycle. We'll go through the cycle, like some of the points in next slides. So the first one is basically resume. Let's talk a little bit about resume and why it exists. So the objective of a resume is basically to get you an interview. That's the entire goal of resume. Why are you making the resume? Is because you want an interview. And ideally, when a company is hiring, they wouldn't have asked you a resume if it was possible for them to interview you first in the first phase. There are a lot of demand for a single job, and resume, I would say, this is a written interview. It's a soft interview, which is before the interview. So before getting the face-to-face interview, resume is just a soft quick interview of you. So I'll go through some of the major mistakes I see in resumes and what is the purpose. So obviously it is to get an interview. So the first thing is that resume is to sell yourself to whoever is looking at you, to sell your strengths. Uh, and the first thing is that the literally I would say like 30 seconds is even more. Like I would say a person who is scanning through hundreds of resume, they don't even look at one single resume for more than like 20 seconds. So you have to make an impression to that person within the first 10 to 20 seconds, which is so just keep that in your mind when you're building the resume, that it cannot be cluttered. We'll go through some of the do's and don'ts, but that is like step one, that just remember that your resume will be only looked for 30 seconds for in the beginning. If it is attractive, then maybe people will spend time, but that's pretty much it. Obviously there is uh, no one resume fits all kind of solution. You build your resume for each job. You have a master resume, you make multiple versions of it, 7 8 versions of it. Whenever you're applying to a new job, you customize it, take some parts of it, and then apply to a new job. So you probably know that this already, but this is also very important thing. And then finally, knowing your audience, that whenever you are building the resume, you put yourself in the employer's shoes and look at what are the job requirements are from the job requirement sites, and whatever the skills they're looking for. And then you basically uh, tailor your resume based on the job requirements. So you know your audience, empathize with the employer, and then uh, come back from that angle. So these are some basic tips. Um, I'll talk a little bit about how should the wordings be. I'm sure that whoever is building the resume is having grammatical mistakes are uh, insanely. I mean, I would say like that. These are very negative. So make sure that you have Grammarly, which is a free software, installed in your all your in your cell phone, in your desktop, and then make sure there are no grammatical mistake. Even if there is one grammatical mistake in a resume, I would never take that person, no matter how good that person's profile is. So make sure there is no grammatical mistakes or word mistakes. So very important. And then after that, the second phase would be to change the wordings of the sentences. So I'll go through some sample resumes after this, but very important is that how you are putting the sentences. So suppose you mentioned some job experience, right? You said that, okay, I worked in this Verizon for 6 months. And then you write the Verizon, and then you write the dates from when to when you worked. And then basically you're writing the sentences that I did this, blah blah. You have some bullet points. That's how normally the resumes are written. I'll show some samples, but it's very important on how you form each of the sentences. So keep this in your mind. Like, I hope that you inject this forever in your mind, is that the sentences has to follow either of these two models. And the models are that the sentence structure will be that there was this problem. I'm just giving an idea. Obviously, we'll form the sentences later on. I'll show examples. But there was this problem, and then I took some action, and as a result, something improved in the company. So that will be the angle. You can improve the English of it, but that's the angle. Each sentence ideally should contain this kind of statement that improved the performance of a failed network. I'm just rambling random sentences now, by implementing something, and as a result improving the business case 20%. So the actions or the sentences should be in this kind of direction. So this is one way you can phrase this sentence. The another way, it could be action plus benefit equals to result. That is that you took an action, that you implemented something with which has this added benefit, which has the improved efficiency of something percent, and then it resulted in a company benefit, or it impacted the system in this way. So very important that you are making those sentences in a cause and effect type of way, and the cause and the action is basically something you are doing, and the result is the improvement or of a system or a team effort or a company. The result is something positive towards the team or the company. That's very important to represent in the resume. So I'll again go through the detail. I'll show some samples statements, but obviously some basic do's are use action and impactful verbs. Very, very important. Weak verbs are obviously not good. I'll show a slide quickly here. So this is a impactful words cheat sheet. I can email this to you guys later on if someone asks, but this is a cheat sheet for impactful words. So what are the impactful words? Impactful words means like every resume, whenever you're writing, you have this, as I say, like bullet points where you are saying your experience. So how do you basically mention your experience? So if you want to mention some achievement, you have achieved something, you can use any of these words like accomplished, achieved, awarded, completed, earned. See, these are, when you start the sentences like this, it automatically creates an impression to the reader. Then you can, if you have advised somewhere or gave opinion, you can say analyzed, advised, consulted, evaluated, examined. You can already see the impactful words. And then if you have built something, you made a system, or you built something from scratch, you can write authored, built, created, defined, designed, developed, engineered, founded. See, pioneered. You can see what are the strengths of these words if you start with this. Then if you found some system, you found something, and then you made it better. So you can say boosted, conserved, decreased, enhanced. So all these words, again, very important action words and very strong, creates a very strong um, uh, impression. So anyone who wants the cheat sheets, please definitely email us at info. We'll share the email later on, info@getmehired.co. info@getmehired.co, just in case we forget. So we can also post it in Facebook event as well, just in case. And then if you have managed something, again, if you have managed a group of people, then led, managed, organized, oversaw, produced, see how strong they're. Like, they will create any strong impression in the reader's mind. Definitely, just if you are out of these words, make sure that you go to thesaurus.com, and then you can just search synonyms of those. And like, there are many online dictionaries. Look for synonyms and use those. But this should be a good starting point. So having these words, starting with this, and remembering that action impact idea, it should be like each sentence hopefully should be a killer sentence. And then use short and concise sentences. I think concise is more important, that you're not giving redundant information. It's just filtered information. So concise sentences. Very important that you use percentage or dollar amounts or percentage. I was giving an example even in my previous verbal example. I was saying that you improved 20% of the efficiency. You have the revenue increased 20 million for your company or something. Use more data. The more data you use for your impact, the more trustworthy it becomes. So that's very important. Obviously, keep the resume easy to read, like very clear, not cluttered. And then absolutely never cross your resume for more than 2 pages unless you're trying for academia. For academia, you might have a list of publications which you can go for. But if you are trying for the industry, definitely never have more than 2 pages of resume. 1 page is ideal, but 2 pages is maximum for industry. And the don'ts, do not use pronouns such as I, me, my, etc. As I said, the sentence structure should always start with accomplished this, full stop. So that should be the structure. Definitely do not include references in resume. We do not do that anymore. It was very old school. Do not clutter your information with resume with non-essential information. Then this is again very relevant to the job you're applying to. You will have a master resume. Parts of it will go to different jobs. So make it customized. Do not make any misrepresentations. Do not include obviously personal information. These are very basic. I hope that you already know that. Let's go through an example. I think that would be a good practice right now to do. Let me see if I can pull up an example. So this is an example of a Harvard resume. You can just search in Google Harvard resume. And the reason we are going through a Harvard resume is because it's not because it's good or bad, but it is a industry standard. It's very important that you go through a very average looking, very generic looking resume. Unless you are going for a creative job like architecture or some kind of arts, you don't want your resume to be like very colorful. Like, I'm saying like mildly colorful, okay? But if you're going through for a job for UX designer or like any kind of creative jobs, sure, do some creativity. But in general, people are just looking for formats. And then when they see a fixed format, it's easier for them to recognize what is where, So this is a very good format of resume. And I would say that you can just literally follow this. Like this one, resume 1 or 2, both are very similar. So you see, like they have the name flat, just a little bit bold, then the address, then basically this is the address, and then the phone number and email. And you can put LinkedIn as well, but that's pretty much all you have in the beginning, nothing else. You can or cannot have objective depending on how much space you have. If it is crossing more than 2 pages, you should probably not have that. If you have, so it depends. If you have space, you can put objective as well. And you can either put education in the beginning or experience. It depends as well. If you have a lot of experience, then you can put the experience before the education. I would say for industry, if you have more than 2 experiences, put the experience in the beginning and you can put education later on. But yeah, like for this person is graduating for Harvard, so this is also a very strong profile. So it's okay for them to put the education in the beginning. So The format is pretty fixed, I would say. Harvard University, that's the name of the entity, location of the entity, and then what did they do there. So something in statistics, and then blah blah some details, and then expected graduation on this, then university and this, and some details of the coursework they did which are relevant for this job. The experience, same style. The name of the company or the client, Harvard University, location, and then what was the role, research assistant, and then basically the date. This is a very fixed format, just yeah. And then look what the conducted research on modeling, allocated patients. This is by far the only way you should write resume. A bullet points and starting with action words, that's it. And then there are obviously, like, I can go much longer for resumes, but yeah, like whenever you're trying to follow a format, this is a great format. You can just follow the Harvard University's format. And I guess I can go back to my slides again. Okay, all right. So I hope that that was helpful. We can switch to the next topic right now, which is networking. And networking, I hope that you can take some good good mindset shift today for networking. First of all, why is it important, networking? Research indicates that approximately 75% of the people find jobs through networking. It is what the research shows. I would say it probably is even more. In my previous company, I hired at least like 3 or 4 of my friends. Like, I mean, people, my company manager or my company actually posted the job online in their job board, but we knew internally that these are totally like almost like sham. Like, no one is looking at this, because I referred a couple of my friends or a couple of my people, couple of my friends who I knew that are good at that, and I referred them to my manager. We had an interview and they got a job. Like, the job like the portals was totally meaningless. So this is very important for you to understand that yes, like, you have to apply for jobs in the traditional routes by applying, but networking is almost like a superpower skill, which you have to, and this is a learnable skill. So if you say that I'm not good, I'm not a social person, I don't know how to network, I don't like talking to people, this is something which is not innate. Some people are innately social, but this is something which is a skill. You can learn it like a programming skill as well. So um, I'll give you some basic idea of how to shift the mindset for networking, and I hope that it will, you can you can understand the concept and start implementing. So this is one line if you want to remember anything from I would say, like, from the job hunt process in networking, is that remember this, like, networking equals to giving. That's what networking means. Like, forget about the word. Networking means giving. That's the meaning of networking. And um, so no matter how you have thought of networking before, forget all the definitions. So and what do I mean by networking mean giving? Networking is basically making friends. I'll give it a more easier way to understand. Networking means making friends. It's not about exchanging contacts. It's not about reaching out to people and just talking about yourself and what you do and that you need a job. That is not networking. That is basically, no one will give you a job if you're if you are if you are just thinking of yourself. So we are all, humans are all social, like social animals, and we everyone, no one wants to talk to someone who will just go to them and instantly say, oh hey, I need a job. Like, um, if it is a one-sided thing. So how do you do networking after you know this thing that networking is giving? So what I mean is that try to create value in wherever you're going. So if you know something, if you go to a social party, if you know something, try to start this mindset that, hey, like, I know this thing, can I share? Like, when you're opening a LinkedIn profile, share some articles which you feel are which would be useful to the friends or networks you have. So before reaching out to people in LinkedIn, it's better you actually start sharing things, useful information, useful like inspirational quotes. It can be some kind of thing you are working on which could be useful to the people. So start giving first. That's the rule number one for networking. And do not wish for results instantly. Do not do it as a random acts of kindness. Just do it because you want to help people. So that's one thing. And I can tell it from my own experience that giving is the biggest form of networking, which I did not realize when I was young. I just started helping to this community of students who higher study abroad, where I was just trying to help students who are trying to go abroad. And now, after 8 years, it is in my network is enormous. Like, I have so many people I know who are talented in different fields, and I did not think that it will come back to me in this way. Like, sure, it probably doesn't have a financial value, but the social capital I got, that the amount of people I know who are skilled and who can give me information on what is the next job is enormous. So obviously I did not plan it in a selfish way, but it is helping me in a selfish way. So which brings me to the next point, is that try to become long-term selfish. Like, if you are inherently a selfish person, like all of us, we are all selfish. Try to be long-term selfish. And by long-term selfish, what I mean is that see that like every relationship you are in the world, it can be a family relationship, it can be with your partner, it can be with your friends, it can be a business relationship. None of the relationship will be able to sustain if it is a one-sided relationship. If you are just thinking of like, oh, I'll take a shortcut and I'll just take some benefit from this guy or girl and then I'll just leave, you're just being dumb, because every human being is smart, and they will realize that you are trying to take advantage of them, and you will just literally burn the relationship. They will probably not say it. They will probably not they will pretend that they didn't understand. They will probably pretend to be naive, but they will definitely realize, because you have to understand everyone is smart. So it's very important that you are seeing things in a very long term way. And long term way, by that I'm meaning that try to create more value, try to give more, and realize that the only relationships which will sustain in the long term are the ones which is a win-win. You can go to a win-lose relationship where you are winning, but you cannot win for a long term. So try to go to relationships which are win-win relationships, where both of the parties are winning in the long term. So yeah, so that's another tips of networking. And again, networking is just building relationships. I'm not even going to the implementation side. I'm just giving you the theory. I hope that you understand what networking means. And then finally, networking, which is relationship, which is giving, is kind of like a plant. If you want a relationship to survive, you have to water that plant. Suppose you met someone in a party. Um, um, you met someone in a party, you exchange contacts, you know that you created an impression by creating some value to their lives. Obviously that person will remember you, but to retain that, you have to water that plant. So just follow up after a month, after 2 months, 3 months, that hey, like, how's it going, and water that plant so that the relationship is active. Um, the networking tools, I'll go through some of the networking tools. Physical networking tools, one is super important, which is Meetup. So let's go to meetup.com. And then what do you do in Meetup? I have some friends actually who are in this talk who are from Couchsurfing, which is an amazing platform I use for networking as well. Great. I mean, I used to make friends, but again, making friends is networking. So let me see if I can log into my Meetup. So basically, Meetup is a great platform as well. So go to Meetup if you are suppose looking for a whatever job. So I'm in Brooklyn right now. So whatever you want, like you put data science, for example, right? You put data science, you see a couple of Meetup events, and go to these Meetup events. If you are living in a big city or near a big city, there will be a lot of meetups. Just sign up to meetup.com and start going to these events. And of course, you basically retain the relationships you created physically in online. So that's like now this hybrid of online and offline networking. It's like a killer combination now. Previously we didn't have this, like all these combinations. Now you can go to physical events, for example using meetup.com, and meet people and exchange your LinkedIns, and then retain, like what are the plans later on using LinkedIn. So this is like a full close, like start to close on how you are retaining the relationships. So yeah, so this is a kind of like a tip. And then there are other big groups as well. Like I'll search the Google developers group. So this is if you go to Google developers, you can go and then you can see groups. So there are communities, so you can see the GDG chapters worldwide. You can search your location. You can see like the GDG Halifax. So this is a Google developers group. So if I search GDG Halifax, I already found a meetup group. So I can just go there and go to their events. So very important to use this big companies platform. You can search for IBM communities. You can look for AWS developers group and things like that. All right, so I'll go to the job searches best practices, or some more, I would say, like online resources. So it depends on what kind of job you're looking for. If you are looking for a, like a big company, well, first of all, LinkedIn is by far the singular platform you have to have. Either you're looking for a job in startup, big company, small, doesn't matter. LinkedIn is must. And I saw one question from a student, from Erica actually, and some other people. So I'll go through like very quickly about how the LinkedIn should look like and what are some super important basics for LinkedIn. Absolutely have a good headshot of your picture. You can use, like, ask some of your friends to do that. The things which are on the beginning. This is one of my friends who is a Forbes 30 under 30. So he just wrote like his basics, like lecture at entrepreneurship. He's reimagining cardiac rehab in his company, and he's like, whatever you want to show off in the beginning, because this will come up in the beginning. See the people. So whatever you write here will be the most visible to the recruiter. So so do that. In the about, give a little bit of your, try to give a combination, right? It's kind of like a written combination of you basically. It's not only about your work. So, and this is something I really love about his profile, is that he made a simple impact sentence in the beginning, that I love working with innovators to transform their innovations into businesses that change the world for good. It does. Your profile doesn't have to be this grandiose, but just having a singular statement, I think, is a good start. And then you basically go to the previous words, like I've worked in these things, I've created value in this way. Talk about that, and then ideally put a little bit of your personal, like give a personal touch, like talk about your hobby a little bit in the end, so that people know that you're a human and not just a machine, because we eventually want to work with humans. So I believe looking good is good in business. I'm getting better at cooking, skiing. So see, this is a kind of like now you know that, oh, this is not just like a, like just not just a CEO, but he's also like a normal human like us. So so that being said, super important, start being active in LinkedIn. Many of you guys have Facebook. Forget Facebook. Try to convert all your social media consumption and activity in LinkedIn if you can. It will help you enormously. And it's not only something you start up before you're looking for a job, because again, I said that relationship building and networking is a long-term thing. You can start putting the seeds right now and get the results 2 years later. So make sure that you are active in LinkedIn, sharing important detail news, whatever you think is important, and then creating value, getting in touch with people, things like that. Experience, obviously, you add. It's okay. So one thing before going too much details into this. The resume and LinkedIn, these are two very different mindset of when you're building this. So resume is a 2-page constrained thing, so you have to finish everything within 2 pages. For LinkedIn, it's totally opposite. In LinkedIn, as much data as you can put, it's better, because it will help you. LinkedIn has its own search. The recruiters have their own searching portals, and the employers have their own searching portals where they can search. LinkedIn has its own SEO. So basically, the more word you put, the more impact words you put, there are the chances that you will basically get more visibility. So the idea is opposite for LinkedIn, is that make sure that not only that you put your like the names, but make sure that you're putting uh, details content. And super important is that make sure that for all the contents, whenever you can, you add the media. So do not make it like just basic text. So this have some proofs, like if you have worked in a company, if you got some special employer like congratulatory, or you have some achievement, scan that, and then just upload them for everything, starting from your work. And then even for education, I would say even he could have added some more stuff, like he studied in University of Houston. Uh, Add your like undergrad certificate or your master's certificate scanned. Like your certificate physical copy has literally no value in the current world, because everything is software now, everything is online. So make sure you have as much proof. It's not only for proof, but it's also for visibility, because LinkedIn introduced this feature a couple years back, and definitely LinkedIn will push more these profiles who are using these features more. So and as put your volunteer experience. This is the thing which Ishtiak talked about, that add the skills and make sure you get the endorsements. And again, recommendations. So remember the basic rule again: networking is about giving. Give 10 recommendations, get 5, doesn't matter, but start with giving recommendations beforehand. Whoever worked with you, whoever you know, in whatever format you have worked with someone a little bit, give them recommendations first and then ask for it. Like that's like a basic rule. Don't even ask for recommendations if you have not recommended them. And then and then list the awards and achievements, and be active in LinkedIn in general. So that's I hope that there wasn't too much of a sidetrack. So it depends on the job you are looking for. So LinkedIn is the generic platform for everyone. ZipRecruiter is if you're looking for jobs in most of the companies, like large companies. AngelList or angel.co, which is the website, is for if you're looking for jobs in startups. Dice, Indeed, these are for if you're looking for corp to corp jobs. And then there are the University Career Center website, individual company websites. So job hunt is a very like rigorous, and I would say like a very like detailed. It's like a full-time job hunt is a full-time job. Like it's literally takes a lot of time to having profiles in all these platforms and then having your own individual company website. So I'll go through like whenever you are after the networking, when you have graduated, when you are starting to look for jobs, basically um, so here are a couple of the steps. So create your resume. You have already done that. Update your LinkedIn profile, create your online portfolio, then start listing for target companies. So basically start making the list of target companies which you want to go to apply to. And then you can have a job tracker. I'll show like a sample of how a job tracker can look like. So this is have some general information. So there is the company. Suppose there is Google. Then there is this job posting. There is a URL. I'll show how the URL looks like. So this is a job for visual designer in Google. Some experience. So start having your own Excel sheet, and then basically have the job title, the location, when did you find it, did you apply for it, yes, no, update this, and then did you apply for it, put the date, did you do the research, and after you have applied for it, if people get a lot of emails, so a lot of applications, so send a follow-up email to the HR for that company that, hey, I sent a job like applications or follow-up emails, then do interviews, have a tracker. So basically create it. This is a pretty complex tracker, but have your own simple tracker if you want to basically to just noting down, having an Excel sheet and having these details that where are you in the job search process. So hope that was helpful. So we just went through the examples. Is there any questions so far for me?
Yeah, Siam, thank you. There was a lot of interesting questions that came through, Siam. Thank you for that. And the first question I want to ask you, it came from Rizal Islam. And the question is, can I apply for jobs before I graduate, like a few months before getting OPT in the last semester? Will the companies interview me in this condition in advance?
Yes, I would say definitely start applying for jobs because you want visibility in the to the employers. If you don't have the OPT, you can still say that I have applied for it. You're graduating, and if nothing happens, I would say at the very least you will have practice, because don't assume that you just got into the job field and you'll get it in 2 weeks. It will not happen. Like, have the cards in your hand first, and then this is again, like, it's a fancy problem. Like, have the thing in your hand first and then worry about what will happen. Like, you don't even have a job offer. So yes, absolutely, I would say, like, start at least 3-4 months early.
Great. So the next question, I agree, that's how you should go. Next question is from Pritam Dey, and he's asking, in OPT, should we go for the internship if there is a chance, or straight to full-scale job?
That's a very interesting question. So if you have a full-scale job from a good, so it depends on a case-by-case basis, to be honest. If you have an internship in Google and a full-case job in a smaller company, so it's I cannot really answer it, like, because it's a very customized answer. But whatever has more value. And as I said, internship in Google, I'll probably take that because Google can probably do the internship. Internship is just part of a hiring process. They will eventually hire me, and my H1 green card, everything will be smooth compared to a new startup is probably a full-time job, but I don't know if they can sponsor for my H1. So it's a case-by-case answer. Ishtiaq, if you want to add something.
Yeah, well, you put it in a very nice way. There could be situations where you get an internship from Google, or do you get a full-time, do you accept a full-time job from someone else? Those are important, those are difficult situations. I would sort of lean towards the company who is sort of who is more likely to sponsor your H-1B and green card. What I mean by that is companies like Google, Microsoft, those companies actually, as soon as you get a full-time job, they don't even wait. You don't have to negotiate. They immediately put out your green card application. They don't wait. That's how much they value their employees. They don't wait at all. Google, like the top tech companies, immediately apply for your green card. So you definitely want to look at the long-term perspective, and so that makes it a hard question. So because larger companies are more likely to go for your green card right away. And the other thing is, if you have multiple offers, it actually makes it easier for you to negotiate. So case-by-case basis, but you want to look at the long term. I want to ask this other question that was raised by Ralitza Mondo. And his question is, are you allowed to do CPT right away after starting your master's if your master's is a 1-year program?
That's a good question. I don't want to answer it wrong, but you're not allowed to do the CPT right away. There are some schools which does that, but with the stringent policies, it's getting harder to do that. I don't want to give the wrong advice here, so I'm not exactly sure, but probably not. You said for a 1-year master's. I'll have to get back to you on that. Actually, I don't want to give a wrong answer because this is an immigration advice.
Right.
If you can email us
Yeah.
at info@getmehired.co, we can find something for you.
Right. This is another question, and I think this is a very relevant question for most of the students who are listening in. The question is from Oishi Ibnat, and she's asking, those who are graduating in this December, especially undergrads, they don't have 9 months in hand. So what would be the best way for them to prepare to get a job before graduating?
Am I mute? Okay, sorry. Like, can you repeat the question again?
Yeah, absolutely. Oishi asks,
Hmm.
those who are graduating this December, especially undergraduates, and don't have 9 months to prepare, how do you recommend they prepare to get a job?
Okay, great question. We realize that whenever we are advising that 9 months, it will create some. So, I mean, I would say prioritize on those. Like, if you have 4 months, then basically prioritize on the important things. You probably have a basic overall idea now that you have to have a strong online presence in LinkedIn, have a good portfolio built up, visible online, and then also start networking. So I would say that just like prioritize and execute. I don't know if I don't know what else to say on that. Like, if you have 4 months, then just make sure you have a strong online profile, and then make sure you're networking, allocate your time properly, and then basically um, also start applying before 2 3 months before you want to have a job. And if anything, like, realize that it's a very important time for you. So if like life eventually is all about compromise and choosing one thing above another, so you might have to leave some other things right now because you realize it's a very important time of your life, and just make those priorities.
Thank you, Siam. I have a lot more question coming through, but I want to quickly get to this question. This is a question from Amrina, and she's asking, if I don't get a job at a company, and essentially what she's asking, if I applied for a job at a company and got rejected, can I apply to the same company after a year? Will
Yeah,
they consider my application?
of course. Yeah, of course, you can reapply to the same company. Many companies actually see how desperate or like how dedicated or persistent you are. Of course, you can get a job. There are many people who get in second or third tries.
Okay, thank you. And this is an interesting question from Habibul, and he's asking, for getting a green card, which one is better, doing a postdoc or starting a job in a company?
Doing a postdoc, this is an interesting question, but I would say that both could be good in terms of status, I would say. But would you do postdoc or industry? Like, how much will you sell your life for this? Like, uh, you should only do postdoc if you are interested in going into heavily research based career or academia. If you want to work in industry, it's better you start thinking, or at least moving. So first you have to decide, do you want to be in academia or uh, industry? Both are equally easy, or both are equally hard. I would say both are equally hard to get immigration resolved. I don't think one is easier than another. Academia, you can probably go through the NIW route, but it's not so easy to have massive publications or having a great profile. So I'm not going to say that is an easy route. Same with industry. There's a lot of people who are going to industry, but there are also a lot of demand there. So I guess both are equal. Choose based on what your career path looks like. And I think, like, hopefully we can get back to our sessions before we get
Yeah, there's a lot more questions, but I think we should move ahead.
we will answer them one by one. Thanks a lot, everyone, for sticking with us for this long. So I'll hand over right now to Tanzim, who is basically going to talk about career and job fair and some more about personal well-being. So Tanzim, if you can take the slide.
Right. Thank you so much, Liam. Yeah, that was a great segment on networking, by the way. There was a lot of things you went over. There are two common sayings actually about networking in the US. One of them is it's not what you know, it's who you know. So even though what you know is important, who you know can get you that job. And the other saying is your net worth is your network. So the richer a person is because they have a bigger network. So or yeah, network. So without further ado, let me go in one of my favorite sections. Let me share the screen. Give me one quick second. Ready. It should be shared. Alrighty. So the thing I'll be discussing about is career/job fair. And a career fair is a great opportunity for a lot of people to get their foot in the door, and also a good way to network with industry professionals. In a room full of hungry graduating students, we'll do our best to make sure you stand out. So the first step of any career fair is pre-career fair and how to plan it out and how to make sure you're on top of it. So of course, other than having your resume ready and maybe a cover letter, make sure you print enough copy of resumes. Plenty of times I went into a career fair where I actually ran out of resumes. So make sure you don't run into that problem. In addition, also make sure to dress professionally and such. It does make a huge impression. The most important part of the pre-career fair, though, I would say, is coming up with an elevator speech. Now, the elevator speech is a 1 to 2 minute speech that focuses on your strength along with a personal touch. Now, there's a lot of ways to approach the elevator speech, but just make sure that whatever speech you come up with, it covers who you are, what you do, and also try to connect it with the place you're talking with. So if you're talking with a company and they have a big project that's going on and they're talking about it online, make sure to bring it up. Make sure to let them know, hey, I really like that project you guys are working on, and I'm interested in learning more, and I'm actually passionate about the topic. That right there can go a long way. The second step is the career fair. Career fair itself, of course, that is the place where you go in and try to make a difference and pretty much put yourself out there. And that's where the quote here says that great things never come from comfort zones. Uh, in a big room filled with so many students, it can become a little intimidating sometimes, but just know that nobody there knows you more than yourself. And if you have everything ready, you're ready to present yourself. So go in with confidence and try to make yourself comfortable. Now, in order to tackle that part, what I would say, the career fair part, what I would say is that make sure you research every company uh, before you go to them. So I know it can be a little hectic with a number of companies, but if you're looking, before you go to any resume fair, make sure you have a list of the international companies or the companies that will hire international students. This will really help you narrow down your search. In addition, make sure you separate your companies into primary companies and secondary companies. What that means is that primary companies are the companies that you really want to work for, everything lined up. And the secondary companies are good companies, but you may not be as interested in them. And make sure you make a map right before you go, actually. So this is still part of pre-career fair. Make sure you are making a map of where all these companies are, because that will help you navigate a big room or multiple rooms if that's the case. I've been in career fair where it was one big room, and I've been to career fairs where there are multiple small rooms. So instead of just being lost every time you try to look for a company, it's good to know where they are. And most universities will a week before or so publish which companies are coming and where they will be exactly, where their booths will be exactly. So that takes me to, of course, the next of the career fair itself. Try to go early. It helps to go early because that with the people that are coming there, they haven't talked with 100 students before you. They are fresh. They just had their morning coffee. They're ready to go. You're ready to go. Make that impact. Be one of the first students to go to a booth. Now, what I would suggest, and this is a small trick that has always worked, the first two booths you go to, make sure it was from your backup company or companies you don't even want to apply for. And the reason is, even though you have practiced 1,000 times your elevator speech in front of a mirror, in your restroom, or you're in a dorm room, or you have practiced in front of a friend, it's still a little different when you're going in front of a career professional, a recruiter. It is still a little different. So it's always good to go somewhere where you are practicing, but not losing out on anything. So it really helps. It really helps to just get the practice out of the way. If you mess anything up or something is not good, if your speech is not more or 1 or 2 minutes, it's more than that or it's too little, you can fix that at that time. And before you go to every booth, take a 30-second break to prepare yourself. That can also be very useful. And always make sure to collect business cards. So every booth you're going to, speak with them, give your elevator speech, answer any questions they may have. Make sure you give your resume that Siampaya went over so well, and make sure at the end just ask for the business cards and anything else that they would recommend you taking. Now, after the career fair is over, comes the post-career fair part. Now, this part is extremely useful to differentiate you from other people, other candidates. And the reason I say that is because a lot of time people would just give their resumes and they would have a good talk, and then they would go home, they would make some tea and noodles, and they would think that companies will reach out to them. The reason why I put in the code, the post-credit scene, is because imagine the thing that CM had talked about earlier, about a movie, the trailer and the movie itself. So you can look at the pre-career fair as the trailer. You're getting prepared for everything. The career fair can be the movie itself. But now imagine a regular movie and a movie in MCU, Marvel Cinematic Universe. Everybody waits until the movie is over to see what's so special, or what special thing is about to come up. And if you want to differentiate yourself from a regular movie to a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie, you go to the post-career fair, which pretty much means apply to every place you spoke to or every company that you spoke to. That makes a huge difference because you just spoke with them. You just applied to whatever their opening was. If one company has multiple opening, apply to all of them. In most cases, if you have a profile in one company's website, it's easy to apply to multiple positions from there. So don't hesitate. Apply to more positions than you initially thought about. Having too many jobs offered is a very good problem to have. And the other important thing is make sure to send follow-up emails. So in your career fair time, the last thing you did at every booth was collect their business cards. So make sure you follow up with a thank you email for their time and such. And if you have already applied through the website, that would be also a good time to mention it. Be like, hello XYZ, thank you so much for your time earlier today. It was great speaking with you. I already applied through the website, and also attached with my email, or attached with this email, is my resume. I look forward to hearing from you all. Now, if you also have a cover letter, which is one thing we, of course, don't have time to go over, but if anybody has any questions about it, please email us. The cover letter can also be useful, and you can put actually the cover letter as part of your email, or you can attach it with the email, which is more preferred, of course. Now, that concludes the career and job fair section. Is there any questions before we go to the next part?
No questions so far. You can go ahead.
Oh, awesome. That means I'm doing an amazing job, right?
Great.
I'll just add one small thing, is that we are getting a lot of questions. I'm answering them in the chat. So some of you guys will see the questions answered in the chat. Yeah, just to make it more useful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Sam, for doing that. The questions are pouring in left and right. Alrighty, so the next part is personal well-being. Now, this section is also very important, not for only us, but for individuals. I'll go to the next slide. So why is it even important? Your physical health and mental health is instrumental in finding efficiency, productivity, and at the end of the day, success. The reason that is because if you're exhausted mentally and physically, it becomes extremely hard for you to study for the exam, apply for the job, and in the long run, being successful. So a little bit about your physical health is that almost every university has gyms, and in most cases they're already making you pay for it. So if you're not using it, you're losing out on that time and the amount of money you paid for it. uh, so just go, and you don't have to do anything crazy, just something simple cardio. Just go for, get on a treadmill and just walk and watch a show, even if there is a show that you're behind on. uh, the three things to remember for your physical health is sleep, diet, exercise, repeat. So about sleep, of course, try to get 6 to 7 hours of sleep. And I know with our schedules, it's sometimes hard to do that. But even if you're getting less, just make sure you make it up whenever you get a chance. As far as diet go, I was on ramen noodles for 4 years, so I'm not the leading nutritionist expert in this field. But what I will tell you guys is make sure to balance it out every once in a while. Learn how to cook. It may be a stress reliever and also good for your health. If you have a friend in your network who's good at cooking, and again, this is where networking comes in handy, right? If there is somebody who's good at cooking, buy something and take it over to their house or apartment or dorm and share what you have. And it doesn't have to be even food. I mean, take your notes that they might have missed for a class. Make sure you're giving something to them, and in exchange, compliment on their cooking skills. Trust me, at the end of the night, you may end up with a home cooked meal. Um, and of course, there's also YouTube and such to learn how to cook, which actually I'm doing personally. I'm currently trying to learn how to cook. And exercise, again, there's a gym. And you don't even have to sometimes go to the gym or go inside the gym. If you just walk to the gym and go back to your wherever you live, that walk itself might be good enough at times. So if you're stressed, make sure to do that. The next step is mental health. And this is something, of course, international students do not talk about enough. Being an immigrant myself, I don't speak about it enough. But almost every major university has health clinics where they have a psychologist or someone similar who can just sit down and listen to you and see how they can help you, not in a non-academic way. It just maybe speaking with someone can make a huge difference, just to calm down a little bit and get rid of some of your stress. Now, of course, also make sure to take breaks. Make sure you're hanging out with your friends. Don't forget them while you're networking so hard that you have friends that just want to hang out. And of course, do what you enjoy doing every once in a while. So for me personally, I love dancing. And when I was in college, I was bogged down with my engineering schedule, and I was also working and such. But every once in a while, I just needed to shut everything out, go on YouTube, find my favorite song or two, and just dance. Uh, and what I found out from there, of course, is physically, getting me back in shape, but it also a good way to clear my mind and get me back to what I was doing or what I wanted to do. Made me a person who's fresh and ready to do the next step. Now, the next segment, Istiak Bhaiya will take over.
Thank you.
Oh, actually, I do apologize. Before you take over, there is one last thing I wanted to mention. There was a question I asked in the beginning, and it was, what are the two most important values any employer looks for? And as promised, the answers are, can you be trained, and can you work with others? So while technical skills are very important in your interview and such, at some point, remember to say that, yes, I am someone who is willing to listen, who is willing to understand, and who is willing to take that, next step to learn. And of course, can you work with others? Let them know that you're a team member. Let them know that you have been part of organizations. Let them know that you're willing to make new friends if needed and such. So just slip that in. Make sure you mention that, whether it be in your elevator speech during career fairs, while you network, or when you do your interview. And with that being said, Istiak Bhaiya will take over.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Tanzim. I appreciate it. Well, I want to thank everybody for staying this late. We do have a few more things we want to talk about, very important. And we covered a lot of things today, and we've only scratched the surface, to be honest. And there's a lot of questions being poured in. And I know you guys have questions that are very specific to things that you're doing. So we cannot answer a lot of the personal questions here. But what we want to quickly mention is that, this was essentially organized by Higher Studies Abroad. A lot of you know about it. It's a huge community. Siam is the founder of that community, and by getmehired.co, which is boot camp to get you hired. And we do that through programming, teaching you programming, and having a one-to-one kind of mentor-mentee relationship that walks you through that entire experience. And what we do at Get Me Hired is very simple. We have one singular objective: getting international students hired. It's a very focused kind of uh, initiative that we have. And the initiative actually was born from all the things that we heard from Higher Studies Abroad. People were asking us, how do we navigate through this? What do I do for this? What do I do for resume? How do I prepare for interviews? When should I actually talk to my employer about applying for my green card? When do I talk to them about applying for H-1B? So we designed this particular program specially for international students. And what we do is it's a 90-day programming boot camp, but the relationship actually goes well beyond the 90 days. In the 90-day, what we do is we pick you, we obviously we cannot take everybody, and I'll explain why we cannot take everybody. But the program's idea is to give you those skills that you need to get actually hired. There are two parts of it. So first of all, I want to go over what are the different channels that you can go over. So there's full stack development, applied machine learning field stream.
Are you sharing your screen, by the way?
Okay, I think. Oh yeah, sorry about that. I did not know that you guys weren't able to see my screen. I apologize for that.
No, it's okay.
Okay. There you go. I hope you can see my screen right now. So I was just going over Get Me Hired. As you can understand, we have 3 different streams for it. We have the full stack web development stream, we have the applied machine learning stream, and we have the guided job hunt. So based on what your background is, you can pick one of the streams. The full stack web development web development stream involves everything related to web development. That involves Java, JavaScript. If you already know a little bit of it, great. If you have no experience, you can still start from ground zero, right? It doesn't matter if you have had experience of coding before or not. You can still start that. And it covers JavaScript and Angular and Spring Boot framework, AWS, some of the skills that are very, very on demand for web development. And then we have the applied machine learning field, where if you have a little bit of experience with C++ and Python, it's perfect for you. We mostly cover computer vision and machine learning algorithms. And as you can understand, nowadays, machine learning is kind of eating the world. And this is another stream that you can follow. And then we have the guided job hunt. If you're already qualified, if you're already a qualified programmer or do not want to learn programming, you want to pursue job search and want help in searching for jobs, you can pick that stream where you get one-to-one mentorship in terms of how to strategize, where to look for jobs, networking. We actually build your resume. We train you before every single job interview. We look for jobs for you, and that's our third stream. So as I mentioned, there's 2 streams. There's technical and strategic. Technical is group classes with live mentors, one-to-one technical training in terms of programming. And then there's strategics, which is visa, you name it. Everything that is not related to programming and technical, that's strategic, which is visa, you have salary negotiation, green card negotiation, all of that stuff is in strategic. And the way it works is that we understand that most international students are cash strapped. They don't have a lot of money. So we have designed a program where both of our incentives are perfectly aligned. That means no upfront fee. You don't pay anything upfront. You can if you can afford it. But for most of the cases, you cannot. If you cannot afford it, you don't pay anything. You essentially actually only pay when we get you a job. And if you get fired after you get a job, you don't pay for that month. And you only pay 15% of your take-home salary, and you never pay more than $15,000. So it is very flexible. You have nothing to lose. You do not have to actually pay anything up front. And we're taking this long-term approach on our talent. So you can definitely apply, and I recommend you apply. And you can see that that is why we have an application process. We cannot just accept everybody. We want to, but we just can't, because we're taking a long-term approach, and we win only if you win. So I strongly recommend you guys apply. You can apply at getmehired.co. In fact, the people who are going to apply today, you guys are getting obviously a kind of like a free consultancy, and then you have no obligation. You can essentially talk to us, figure out what we're all about. We'll ask you a few questions to see if you are a good fit, and then we can move on from there. So we have two programs. We have the full-time program, which requires 40 hours a week. This is for the people who are graduating really soon and are kind of desperate and need to get a lot of work done. And then we have part-time, which requires 20 hours a week, and you get a team that essentially is behind you to build your portfolio, get your resume up and ready, having a perfect strategy to look at jobs, where to look at jobs, and essentially your team, right? And then all you have to do is bring your commitment. Obviously, you're not paying anything up front. So all you have to do is bring your commitment, and we essentially become your team to get you hired. So you can apply at getmehired.co. As I mentioned, we want to, but we cannot accept everybody. And in future, hopefully we can accept everybody. But the reality is we cannot at this point. But I strongly recommend you apply, because at least you get to talk to us, and we essentially, you can ask all those questions during the interview, so that you at least get something out of the application. So yeah, you can apply at getmehired.co. I look forward to reading your applications. If you apply by midnight, you're definitely guaranteed an interview. So on that interview, you can ask us any questions you may have. Having that said, I think I'm going to hand it over to our MC, our host, Tanzim, to just wrap it up for us. And yeah, go ahead.
All right, thank you, Istighbar. I really appreciate it. So yeah, we're almost done, and we must confess something. Even with 2 hours into it, we still just scratched the surface on such important topics that affects all of us. With all the questions pouring in, we were not able to, of course, answer everyone's question, but that's okay. We'll try to get to you sooner or later. This webinar is, of course, the tip of the iceberg, since we cannot, customizedly go over everyone's career goals, but we are here for you guys, and especially the application would be help. As Istighbar already mentioned, what sets us apart is one-on-one mentorship. There's nothing to lose if you apply, but do remember the spots are limited, so do apply. As we wrap up the event, I would like to say that international students are some of the hardest working and brightest students, and you can even say they're the backbone for the growth of the technical sector in the US. We all have dreams, and we're here to make sure yours become a reality. I hope everyone enjoyed this webinar as much as we enjoyed putting it together. From the entire GetMeHire.co team, thank you so much for joining us, and have a wonderful rest of the evening.
Thank you, everyone. Email us if you have questions. And thank you.